welcome to Social Business. I'm Brooke Corty.
And I'm Peter Shergold from the Centre for Social Impact.
Coming up on today's program, we'll find out why wealthy Australians are meaner than their overseas peers when it comes to philanthropy, and what the sector can do to try to change that. Plus, why the world spends more on soft drink than on aid for the poor. We look at the effectiveness of aid as an investment with World Vision Australia CEO Tim Costello. And of course, there's some news out of the sector to catch up on with Peter. And we start this month with the new guidelines for the Global Reporting Initiative. The GRI has pioneered the development of the world's most widely used sustainability reporting framework. It's used by many multinational companies to disclose their economic, social and environmental impact. Peter, tell us about some of the changes then.
Well, as you say, this is important because quite a lot of the key Australian firms do measure and benchmark themselves against the Global Reporting Initiative. New criteria coming in, placing greater emphasis on human rights, greater emphasis on gender, in other words, what you're doing in terms of recruiting and retaining and remunerating women, and also a greater focus on local community effort, including the fact that you have to report any negative impact you're having. So, new reporting standards. It'll be interesting to see what impact they have.
Right, and today we also got a news release through from Bendigo and Adelaide Bank saying that the Community Bank network is celebrating more than $50 million in donations to support local community groups and projects across Australia. So it tops off a pretty big month, with a franchise of Bendigo and Adelaide also having a big win in the courts in the past weeks. In a David and Goliath stoush, a small community bank in the New South Wales town of Wentworth took on the Australian Tax Office in the federal court and won. Peter, tell us about the case and what it means for the sector.
Well, I think it's really important. This was a community that lost its last bank, got together as a community back in 1999, set up its own bank, Wentworth District Capital, and put all the profits into the community. But the tax office had said, hang on a moment, this is a banking operation and it's ridiculous, this is a commercial operation and you should be taxed as a commercial enterprise. Went to the federal court, lost. The court found in favour of the Wentworth Bank and said that it was a community enterprise and that overrode its commercial interests. Now, what's interesting is this is like the trifecta of losses for the tax office. Back in end of 2008, they took on another commercial enterprise. It was the Word Investment case. This one went to the High Court, and this was people who made money through funeral director services, but then took the proceeds in that and put it into charity, which is distribution of Bibles. Same thing, tax office said, hang on, this is a commercial enterprise. Same loss. High Court said, no. This is actually a charitable enterprise. And then at the end of last year, I think we mentioned this, an organisation called Aid Watch, which is an advocacy organisation. Again, the tax office said, look, this is just about advocacy. There's no delivering services here. This shouldn't be a charity. Again, the tax office lost 1, 2 and now 3.
Also this month, Peter, we've seen the launch of Australian Stories of Social Enterprise. Now, this launch was by Tanya Plibersek, the Minister for Human Services and Social Inclusion. There's the cover on the screen now, a book which tells the story of 32 pioneering social businesses. So launched by Plibersek, but Peter, Cheryl Curnow.
Cheryl Curnow, my colleague at the Centre for Social Impact, was one of the two authors. The other was Joanne McNeill from Parramatta City Council. This is great. It's going to be a source for us because it's got 32 social enterprise stories. Some of these we've actually had on the show already. We've had Charcoal Lane from Melbourne. We've had Dress for Success in Sydney. We've had Soft Landings in Wollongong. We've got 29 to go. What's interesting, I think often when you think of these new social enterprises, you think of cafes, restaurants, bakeries. What's interesting in this book, it covers the gamut. There are IT firms, there are firms in the area of printing, urban renewal, maintenance, arts precincts. It just shows how diverse social enterprise has become in Australia.
And we've got another great little spotlight on the social business coming up later in our show today as well.
Really good one.
On the philanthropy front, Philanthropy Australia has just released its final report to the Commonwealth Department of Families on strategies to increase giving by high net worth Australians. This study found that wealthy Australians are a bit meaner than their overseas peers. Peter? Is that new news?
No, it seems to be repeated, doesn't it? We've said this a few times, that internationally, comparatively, our high net worth individuals do not give as much as overseas, and particularly as their American counterparts. The Philanthropy Australia report is interesting because it really says, look, there's nothing really wrong with the legal structure, the tax structure. That's fine for philanthropy. It does say yes, we need a charities commission because that will increase public trust in giving. But really it's saying, look, we've got to do more. We need more initiatives to convince people, particularly the high net worth individuals, the major gift donors, to give more.
And this has been backed up by the ATO statistics, actually. It's just come out
yesterday. Well, it has.
Yesterday.
I think it was almost in our very first show, we looked at the tax stats for 2007-8. We've just got the tax statistics for 2008-9. This is where it measures how many people claim for deductions for making taxable gifts. About $2 billion, but here's the rub. It looks like in 2008-9, the amount of tax-deductible giving went down 11%. That's the first time it's gone down in 10 years, and does suggest the global financial crisis was having an impact.
All right, one thing else to mention, and it's on that same front, though, it's about persuading Australia's reluctant rich, perhaps, to give to the poor. This is exactly the aim of one new and quite fancy magazine, you'd have to say. It's called The Difference, and this new magazine is basically a very fancy, very slick magazine targeted at high net worth individuals and corporates, kind of like one of those coffee table magazines you might find at the big offices in the big end of town. This is an annual report card, though, on poverty and disadvantage in Australia, and it actually provides readers with donation options, actual investment forms within the magazine. The editor of the magazine sent out the first 200 copies to the chairs of the top 200 listed companies on the stock exchange, so certainly targeting the right end of town.